Today we're gonna be doing a push workout, but we're gonna do it more chest focused. We're gonna start with an incline Smith machine. I'm gonna walk you through the entire workout as well. I'm gonna explain kind of my setup and my execution for each of the exercises, but for the most part, we're gonna stay locked in, we're gonna stay focused, and we're gonna focus on executing every movement properly. My goal for this workout, and pretty much for all my workouts, is to take them as close to failure, pretty much every set to failure. Obviously, I'm not taking my warm-ups to failure though. I'm using warm-up sets for a lot of the exercises just to kind of gauge how I'm feeling in that movement for today and how much weight I think I can actually do to failure. So we're gonna start, like I said, with the Incline Smith machine. I like using Smith. You can use regular barbell, but I like using Smith because it keeps me more stable. Because this is on a fixed path, it allows me to isolate my upper pecs more. The cool thing about this Smith at this gym, it's by a company called Panada, and they actually have this bench fixed on this rail, so I can actually adjust the distance properly. This is great for standardizing my workout, so I know exactly the settings that I have this bench at. So when I go into this, I can set it up, and I know that every rep from my previous workout is the same as every rep in this workout. But if you don't, obviously, if you don't have this, that's completely fine. Just make sure that your bench is set up dead center underneath this bar. You'll have to actually bring the bar down. I recommend bringing the bar down on the bench, making sure that the knurling on each side is even. That's kind of a foolproof way of knowing if your bench is centered. And then obviously make sure the distance of that bench is accurate so that that bar path is somewhere around your upper pecs. So just below your clavicle, but somewhere in this upper chest region that's comfortable for you. So we're gonna start with a couple warm-up sets. So off camera, I already did one warm-up set. That was my second warm-up set. This is gonna be kind of like a working set. I might not take this quite to failure, but I might just stop shy of it because I am gonna probably increase this weight. Now my goal when I set up in this movement, like I said, I want that bar path and my arm path to be in line with these upper pec fibers. So I'm actually thinking about not just pressing straight up, but I'm actually thinking about bringing this upper part of my arm to my chin or my clavicles. So my collarbone right in here. So I'm thinking about bringing my elbows up, but in squeezing my pecs. Now I know I'm not gonna be able to converge my hands together because I'm using a fixed bar, but I'm still gonna be forcing and trying to create as much tension by bringing my hands together through the movement. Another cue that I want you to think about for any pressing is you wanna make sure that your wrist and elbow is stacked the entire time. What I mean by that is, as you come down in the movement, you don't want your elbows to be flaring back like this and having your shoulders rolling forward. So again, you want to make sure that your wrist and elbow are stacked on top of each other through the entire movement. So it's going to look like this. when I'm performing this, I really want to emphasize the eccentric. I'm not too concerned about slowing it right down, because obviously as the weight gets really heavy, I'm not going to do a 4-second eccentric, but I want to make sure every single rep is consistent through the entire set. So I'm not just dive bombing onto my chest. I'm still going to control that eccentric, bring it down, create as much tension in those pecs, and then explode up, bringing those elbows and biceps in towards my chin or my collarbone. I'm going to do another set at 225, and then we're going to increase from there. So the mic on my hat is not there for a fashion statement. I know a lot of people do it. I'm literally doing it because if I put it here, the bar just hits it. So that's the only reason. Just a little FYI. Especially when I post like incline presses, people tend to ask me, is it okay to arch your back? I think it is okay to arch your back. A little bit of an arch in your lower back is completely fine, because I think it comes down to the preference and the person's body. So for instance, I have quite an exaggerated arch already in my lower back. You can call it lordosis. Whether that's postural or not, me having a slight arch is actually what's comfortable for me. I feel it more in my upper pecs. Whereas if I try to keep my back neutral, or what others think would be neutral for them, but for me it feels like I have too much stress on my shoulders. So again, it could be a mobility thing. Point is finding something, or finding the setup that actually works best for you. Again, I'm not overarching, I'm not engaging my lower back and trying to crank it all the way back like this and keep my chest up. That's not what I'm doing, but I'm keeping a slight arch. It feels comfortable, no pressure in my lower back, and I feel all the tension and stimulus on my upper chest. So we're gonna do another set here. I'm gonna try to go to failure, or as close to failure, maybe one rep shy, since I don't have a spot, but I am on the Smith. I don't know, we'll try for 6. Okay. Last set. We're gonna go again for as many as we can get. I didn't quite get 6. If I don't get 6 on this one, well, regardless if I get 6, I'm gonna do a drop set. So I'm probably gonna take off the quarter, do 2 plates for as many as I can do with good form, take off the last plate, just do 1 plate, and kind of rep out to failure as many as I can, including partial reps. Lengthen partials. Ah. I'm gonna do a drop, but I'm gonna give myself about 15 to 20 seconds of rest. So I'm not just gonna go right into it because again, I want every rep to be quality. Again, it doesn't matter how many we get. Quality reps. Oh. A little bit of butt lift. Oh man. All right. That last rep was a little ugly, so now we're gonna do as many to failure, including partial reps. Oh shit. Oh. Okay. So we're doing to failure, but again, I'm emphasizing with the partials at the end of every set because I'm just trying to squeeze out as much of the muscle that I can, if that makes sense. I'm taking it to failure, but I'm doing as many partials as I can, trying to prolong the set for as long as I can to create as much tension on those pecs. Third set. So again, what I'm thinking about as I'm pressing, this machine actually is great because it does converge. But even more so, again, I'm trying to pull my hands and elbows together as hard as I can. So when I'm in this extended position, I'm really trying to bring, or to almost cram my bicep into my pec as hard as I can. Keeping my chest up the entire time, so I'm not rounding forward. Keeping that chest and sternum up high, and inhaling, I'm almost exaggerating the stretch on that eccentric. So I really want to expand that rib cage, create as much tension and stretch in the pecs as possible. Final set. He's like, I'm not gonna. Okay. We're gonna move on. So we're gonna do 3 sets of these seated cable flies. And again, same thing, we're just gonna go to failure, keep form strict. One thing I'm thinking about is really getting that stretch in the bottom position here. I'm bending at the elbows, but then as I extend forward, I'm straightening out my arms. Again, bringing my biceps together or thinking about cramming them into my pecs. Chest up high. I'm retracting my shoulder blades here at the bottom to open up my chest and make sure I'm getting the deepest stretch possible. But then as I fly, I'm not keeping them retracted. I'm letting my shoulders move naturally. Next set, second set, going heavier, same thing. Okay, last set. We're going really low rest time on these. I'm really only doing like a minute. Final set. We're gonna do it similar to how we did with the Smith machine. So because it's my last set, as many to failure with partials, then I'm gonna drop it and I'm going to continue on with as many reps as I can get. Drop it. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on. Now we're gonna do some shoulders. We're gonna do about 3 shoulder exercises, 1 press, which we'll do a machine, which we'll do next. A machine lateral raise, and we'll finish off with a superset of triceps and dumbbell lateral raises. Let's go. Oh, fucking out of breath. Ay, ay, ay. All right, now I lied. We're actually going to do a superset. We're going to use this front press machine, or that's what it's called. It actually kind of mimics like a standing Viking press. So I kind of like it because it gets even a little bit of upper pec involved as well as your front delt. And it converges at the top, so you get a really nice squeeze. So we're going to superset this machine with this. I'm going to do the seated lateral single arm. Sorry, I can't think. Seated lateral raise, single arm. 3 sets. Again, kind of minimal rest. Okay. Ooh. All right. Now, because this machine doesn't really have a back support, as I'm pressing, I'm leaning into it, or I'm trying to keep my torso as stable as possible. So in other words, if I'm pressing, I don't want to be pushing away and losing stability. I'm trying to keep as much stability in my core and in my torso as possible.
Ooh.
Now with this one, I'm doing single arm, and because I'm angled away, for me, I find it's more comfortable on my shoulder. It allows me to stay a little more into that, what's called scapular plane. So I'm not flying directly out beside me. I'm angling myself, keeping my shoulder in line with this pivot point the entire time, allowing me to focus a little bit more on my mid delt. It's just more comfortable for me. A little heavier. New drop set. Fuck, I'm dying. Drop set. Okay, we're gonna do one more superset. Triceps, finishing off with some dumbbell lateral raises. All right, we're gonna do a single arm cable tricep extension. I'm supersetting this just for efficiency, for timing rather, with a standing dumbbell lateral raise. And I'm just gonna go back to back, minimal rest in between these. Obviously just enough because I wanna be able to perform at my best when I'm doing each rep, or sorry, each set. But again, starting with the triceps and then doing the standing dumbbell lateral raise. For the triceps, I wanna make sure that my shoulder is locked in position. So I don't want my elbow to be swaying forward at all in the movement. A little bit of elbow movement is okay, but you wanna keep this upper part of your arm as stable as possible. That's gonna allow you to generate as much force in the movement as you possibly can. So for these lateral raises, my focus on this is to place my mid delts in a favorable position. So I want to actually lean forward more. That's going to help me put my traps in a little bit of an unfavorable position. I know I'm not going to eliminate my traps fully, but by leaning forward, this allows me to keep my mid delts in a more favorable position without internally rotating, which kind of irritates my shoulder. So I'm not going to be doing the pinkies up. I'm literally just going to push these weights down towards the ground and raise them out and away from me. We're going to do 2 more sets of that. The reason I'm supersetting both of these exercises is because the battery life on my camera is about to die. Normally I would probably do these exercises individually to get the most out of them, but for the time's sake and the lack of battery, we're just going to superset them and kind of move fast so you can see the whole workout. Oh, shit. We got one more set. Final set, I've increased the weight. And again, we're gonna go to failure, including partial reps. Again, keeping that shoulder locked the entire time. Okay. That was the last set. We're gonna move on and we're gonna finish off with the tricep exercise. We're gonna do overhead dumbbell extensions. I'm gonna show you the setup for that one and how I like to do those. That'll be just to finish it off and fully stretch out our triceps. I can do this standing, I can do it seated, and I can do it upright with my torso straight up and down. My whole goal of this movement is, again, I want to make sure that my shoulder's stable and locked, and this part of my upper arm is actually in line with the line of force. So because this is a free weight, the line of force is actually just gravity. So it just goes in one direction, which is just down. So I want to make sure that my tricep in this upper part of my arm is straight up perpendicular with the ceiling and the ground. Now I can do this upright, like I said, and I can have my shoulder closer, or sorry, my arm closer to my head, but I find this very restricting. It's hard to keep this in, and I'm going to be using a lot more energy to try to keep my arm closer to my head. So instead, I like to keep it just slightly flared out, which is actually more comfortable for me and actually for most people. But because my arm would be flared out if I just left it like this and I was straight up and down, I now want to lean to make sure that this upper part of my arm, like I said, is straight up with the ceiling. Now, again, the whole goal is I'm really trying to make sure that my arm is stable and locked the entire time. So I don't want to be cranking it this way. I'm keeping it locked and I'm just working the tricep. If you notice too, I'm actually gripping at the bottom of the dumbbell. So I'm not in the center of the dumbbell, I'm grabbing at the very bottom because that's gonna allow the weight to be offset in my hand. It's actually gonna make it harder at the top of the movement. So it's gonna make it harder where there's actually less resistance. So I'm adding resistance to the top of the movement. That's it. So we started with chest. We did a chest focused push day today. We did 3 exercises for chest, took them all to failure. We did 3 for shoulders. I guess it's actually kind of chest and shoulder focused. And then we did 2 triceps to finish off. There's one thing I want you to take away is that the setup of every exercise, and it doesn't matter if you're using a machine, is extremely important. Don't just get into the exercise and try to rush into it and think about just going A to B or moving around. Or trying to just move the weight in a certain direction. I want you actually thinking about the setup, keeping everything tight and stable. You don't have to be so rigid. You can move freely in the movement, but I want you to keep stability in mind when you're training. So keeping your shoulder locked if you're training triceps, keeping your torso stable when you're training chest or shoulders, and really focus on what it is you're actually trying to do within that movement. Instead of moving from A to B, you're focused on, you know, driving those biceps into your pecs or bringing them together to really contract. And then lastly, focus on the full range. Really get that stretch and that depth in every exercise that you're doing. So if you're doing a tricep extension, don't just stop at 90 degrees. Really come up the full way, stretch that tricep and come all the way down. If you're training chest, same thing. Expand that rib cage, open everything up, stretch those pecs, and then drive through. Don't just do these partial mid-range reps. Really open up and get that stretch and that emphasis on the actual exercise. That's it. So take it easy.